Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to cut through the noise, really get to the heart of things.
That's the plan.
And today, we're diving into something pretty complex. The future of cannabis in Thailand. You see these headlines, right? International news makes it sound simple, like it's all decided.
Yeah, often oversimplified.
Exactly. So our mission today is to, unpack the subtleties.
Yeah.
What's really going on with cannabis in Thailand beyond the sensational headlines. We want you to understand the shifting reality.
And right off the bat, there's a critical point often missed in those reports. This document everyone's talking about.
The Public Health Ministry draft.
That's the one. The draft announcement on controlled herbs, cannabis. The key word there is draft. It's only a proposal. It's nowhere near being an actual enacted law yet.
Okay, so for you listening, help us understand. What's the typical path for something like this? Is it usually straightforward proposal to law, or are there hiccups?
Oh, it's definitely not straightforward. Far from it.
Yeah.
Getting from a ministry proposal to a final law, published in the Royal Gazette, that takes time.
How much time, usually?
Can be lengthy. And it's intensely political. There's negotiation, compromises. Sometimes the whole thing just gets scrapped.
Wow, okay.
And this whole fluid process, that's what foreign media often misunderstands. They report it like it's already set in stone.
Yeah.
Creates a lot of confusion.
Right. And diving deeper, the original decriminalization itself, that wasn't just some minor policy change, was it? It had a significant backing from the start.
Absolutely. It was notably backed by a royal proclamation from King Rama X himself.
That's huge.
It is. And that proclamation, it wasn't just about medical use. It acknowledged the plant's history, millennia-old social, cultural roots.
Yeah.
Much broader than just medicine.
So that royal backing gave it serious legitimacy.
Profound legitimacy. Which makes the current government's proposals interesting. They're focusing strictly on medical use, trying to limit the recreational side.
Which feels like a shift.
Exactly. Some observers see it as a pretty significant deviation from that original royal intent.
So that puts the government in a tricky spot, doesn't it? Walking a tightrope almost.
Precisely. It's not necessarily a direct challenge, but it forces this really complex negotiation. Royal will carries immense weight, but it's also open to interpretation. Navigating that is delicate.
A real test of their political skill, you could say, especially balancing public health, the economy, cultural history.
It's a major balancing act.
Okay, so let's get practical. If these regulations or some version of them do pass, what happens on the ground? For the growers, the dispensaries we see everywhere.
Well, for the small and medium-sized growers, it likely means more rules, more bureaucracy. License fees could be prohibitively expensive for some. Stricter controls on cultivation, too.
Leading to
Market consolidation, probably. It could really favor the big agricultural companies, the ones with deep pockets who can afford to comply.
And the dispensaries, the ones operating in that sort of gray area now.
Their current business model, likely unsustainable under strict new rules.
But markets adapt, right? I've heard talk about a potential loophole strategy. What's that about?
Ah, yes. This is where things could get, inventive. Some dispensary owners might try to get Thai traditional medicine licenses.
Okay, and how does that help?
With those licenses, they could potentially issue prescriptions for minor things, maybe back pain or headache, per transaction.
So it becomes medical on paper?
Effectively, yes. It could create a sort of de facto regulated recreational market just under a medical disguise. It'd be a workaround and potentially very tricky for authorities to police effectively.
Interesting. So access might still be there, just labeled differently. What about prices and the black market? Does that come back?
Good question. If the legal supply gets restricted or costs go up for legal businesses, then prices for legal cannabis would likely rise.
And when legal prices go up?
That's often when the black market sees an opportunity. It could reemerge, maybe even expand. If legal stuff is too pricey or hard to get, people look elsewhere. Which, ironically, brings back the public health risks the rules were meant to tackle.
A classic unintended consequence. And what about tourists? Thailand relies heavily on tourism.
Right. For foreign tourists, there's this idea floating around, maybe a single prescription that's valid for their whole visa stay.
Really?
It's a possibility. Maybe not standard medical practice, but think about it. It could be a pragmatic way to keep the tourism money flowing. Kind of a uniquely Thai solution, balancing rules with economic reality.
Blending pragmatism and economics.
Sure.
Okay, zooming out a bit, what about the bigger political picture? I've seen some wild headlines even suggesting this could spark a military revolution.
That sounds extreme.
Yeah, a military revolution over cannabis policy. That's almost certainly overstating it. Highly unlikely.
Okay, good.
But the issue does act as a kind of litmus test for the government. How legitimate do people see them? How effective are they?
So it's symbolic.
In a way, yes. If the government is seen as overreaching or not consulting the public enough or going against popular sentiment or, importantly, that royal endorsement, that can add to wider political instability.
It feeds into a bigger picture of dissatisfaction. Exactly. Historically, that kind of sustained public unhappiness in Thailand has sometimes preceded periods of political change or upheaval. So it's not just about cannabis itself, it's about how the government handles this very visible, very contentious issue.
Okay, so pulling this all together for you, our listener, despite those dramatic headlines you might see, remember? This document is still just a proposal. It's not law.
Not yet, anyway.
Thailand's approach will likely involve some clever interpretation, some adaptation, finding ways to let the cannabis industry keep operating, probably under a stricter, more medically focused framework, but operating nonetheless.
The core challenge is still that balancing act. Public health, economic needs, and navigating those complex political currents, including the royal decrees.
So the story of cannabis in Thailand, it's still very much unfolding. It remains fluid, shaped by laws being debated, by how the market adapts, by those deep undercurrents of Thai politics. You really need to look past the easy headlines to grasp where it might be headed. A situation definitely worth watching.